Hi, everybody. My name is sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs, and I'm the host of the Sports Psychology Hour. It's a radio show in Kansas City that airs every Sunday morning on Sports Radio 810 WHB from 7 to 8 a.m. Central Time. And my show is on live all over the country. You can listen to it on www.810whb.com. And I've been on the radio for over 30 years. I'm in my 43rd year of work as a sports psychologist here in Kansas City. And over the past few years, in addition to our radio show, we've launched the Sports Psychology Hour as a podcast and now via live stream on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. So I want to invite you to my website, which is winnersunlimited.com. Click on the podcast tab at the top of the page. That's winnersunlimited.com. You can listen to almost 10 years of podcasts. And follow me on social media at DRJ Sports Psych on Twitter and Facebook.com/Sports Psychology Hour on Facebook and at Dr. Andrew Jacobs on YouTube. All right, that's all the ads we'll do on those. Okay, tonight, I'm very excited to have Carla Buglione on with me. She's the Senior Manager of Player Engagement for the NFL. She's about to enter her 10th year of work, and I'm really excited to talk with her tonight about dealing with players and lives, because, Carla, I've been a sports psychologist for 43 years, one of the first trained sports psychologists in the country. I've worked with a number of NFL players, over 30 Chiefs players over the years, players on other teams as well. I've talked forever on my radio show about how athletes are people. You know, they've got problems just like anybody else does, but a lot of, oh, come on, they're superheroes. I got to know Bo Jackson when I worked at the Kansas City Royals. I mean, probably the best athlete of modern times. I've worked with all these great athletes. They've got the same feelings you and I do. They cry, they laugh, they eat, they sleep, they do everything everybody else does. But because they're so great athletically, people think they're superior. If they do well, if a field goal kicker, like last night in Buffalo, Denver's kicker misses a kick at the end of the game, but 12 men on the field for Buffalo, he gets a reprieve, gets to kick it, he's the hero of the game. If he'd missed that, he'd be hung in effigy in Denver. Now he's a hero. So this is an issue that goes on all the time. You're dealing with it all the time. So thanks for joining me tonight. Let's talk about it. Let me get your thoughts on all this stuff. That's a loaded intro there.
No, I appreciate the intro. You're absolutely right. They're human beings. I look at them almost as brothers. Before I got to the NFL, I was an academic advisor at Fordham University. And a few of those student athletes actually did make it to the NFL and are there today, which is a huge success and a full circle moment. But, they're the same guys who I would help in study hall, except they're making a lot more money.
I'm glad they let you help them in study hall. That's a good sign.
I did, yeah. So I used to help Chase Edmonds, just to shout him out. Chase Edmonds is currently on the Tampa Bay Bucks, and he would come to study hall every night, which was mandated by the head coach Joe Moorhead at the time. And I would help him figure out whatever it was, his academic schedule, dating life, how to deal with family, the whole nine. And it's the same exact problems or life circumstances today. It's just a little bit more money.
You get the impression if you're in the NFL, you've made it. But the average lifespan in the NFL is about 3 to 4 years. Okay. Yes. Most of these guys don't last very long because they'll get injured or they'll get waived or they'll be cut. And unless you're a Patrick Mahomes or a Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady, somebody who makes these incredible amount of money and has this great life, okay, at least that's the perception. They're still people too. They still have to deal with things. I mean, Patrick Mahomes has 2 little kids. He's married. He's diverse in all kinds of things going on. He's got to deal with a lot of things, not as well as try to play football.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. The average lifespan of an NFL player is 3.5 years. And so, that's shorter than most college careers. But that's why player engagement exists. And our department really does come in as soon as they're a rookie, and we stay front and center with them well after they've retired. So we have something called the Legends Community. Once you retire, you become an NFL legend. You not only still get NFL benefits, but you get our department's resources. And so anything from business, entrepreneurial management skills to broadcasting opportunities to going back to school, tuition reimbursement. so on and so forth. Our resources are endless for players. It runs the gamut.
What are some of the problems you think in NFL? Well, let's not limit it to the NFL. Let's expand it to professional athletes. And you're a woman, so let's talk about female athletes as well. I'm the team psychologist for the Kansas City Current and the NWSL here in Kansas City. The NWSL now requires every team to have a mental health professional on staff with all the teams because of a lot of the issues that have happened with the coaches in that league for the last few years. So there's the necessity now to have that at the professional levels. But I see this as something that needs to be, all the way down to the high school level, because we're seeing, young athletes. I mean, the pressures and stressors today, really, to me, from social media, have caused undue problems for so many athletes. We have the goalkeeper at Stanford, the female goalkeeper committed suicide. There's a whole story now in Sports Illustrated. Her parents are blaming Stanford for her death. And there are so many issues these athletes have to deal with. Where do you think, from your experience working with NFL players and at the level you're at, where do you think we need to start with helping athletes out with just dealing with their lives?
Yeah, I think it's your basic life skills. So it's your time management, it's your communication, and it really is decision making, right? And so add some social media and then the stressors of being a student athlete to the mix, and getting up early for practice, and putting on that competition mindset when you're actually come game day. Add that to the mix, and it's really hard. It takes a mentally tough individual to succeed on the collegiate level as an athlete. And as a professional athlete, it's really focus, and it's not easy. But I think those athletes who are successful tap into the resources like your player development, like your academic athletic wellness centers, your clinicians, your sports psychology consultants. It's those resources that really can help student athletes, and it's the ones who utilize those who are successful.
What do you think the biggest obstacles are for? Let's go down to the youth level, high school level, collegiate level. But what are some of the obstacles you see in terms of getting athletes to be exposed to these types of assistances that could be provided for them?
I would say stigma has always been a hurdle that is hard to overcome. I also see in the African American male community that stereotype is very real, right? Like my father, who's African American, was an athlete. He did not believe in self-help, probably not up until 5 years ago at the age of 65. It wasn't something that was readily talked about in his community in the South Bronx. It wasn't something that his mom bought into. And so that stereotype is typically a cultural thing, at least with this population that I work with. However, over the past 5 to 10 years, mental health has become more acceptable, probably because it's everywhere. And so the more student athletes see testimonies, your Michael Phelps having a commercial about how he utilizes, performance coaches, how he goes to therapy. It kind of makes it normal. And I hope that answered your question. I apologize for the distraction. It's a party at my house at 8 o'clock at night.
No, you're busy. No, one of the obstacles that I've had throughout my career has been the perspective that it's weak to talk to somebody. It's weak to talk. You're weak if you go talk to someone about stress or pressure or personal relationships or academics or whatever. We're seeing now with a lot of professional sports much more of an acceptance in it. I was one of the very first sports psychologists in all of baseball at the Kansas City Royals in 1990. I was the first sports psychologist at the University of Kansas in 1981. I was one of the first sports psychologists in the Olympic team with our cycling team in the 80s. And I had to deal with so much negativity across the board from so many people saying, "Oh, we don't need you around. We don't need a shrink. There's nothing wrong with me." Now we're seeing, as you shared, like Michael Phelps, Naomi Osaka, Simone Biles, so many athletes are coming out and sharing hey, I've got issues. So I think we're chipping away at that stigma, but you've got to deal with that on a regular basis. What's, if you would, without naming someone, have you ever had to deal with a coach who was against all this, and what and why, and what were the reasons for it?
I've never dealt with a coach who was against any sort of health and wellness resource or availability. In fact, I've seen the most successful coaches buy in.
That's great to hear, by the way. I'm glad to hear that, because I hear
So
a lot of the other side. Go ahead.
yeah, no. So Pete Carroll from the Seattle Seahawks. I mean, I know they haven't had the best season this past year, or last. However, he's a winning coach, and he actually allocates time in his day to mental wellness for himself, and he promotes that across the team. And that obviously trickles across the locker room from generation to generation and becomes a norm. And so when it starts at the top and there's buy-in up top, then we're only going to continue to make strides in this area, and we're going to completely dispel some of the myths that circulate mental health and wellness.
Well, and what are some of those myths? What have you picked up over the years?
I would say they can't help me. They don't know what I've been through. They don't look like me. They don't know my problems. Very much kind of that relatability factor. And who are they to tell me how to save my money, or who are they to tell me how to focus a little bit harder so that, I don't spiral out of control. They don't know what it's like. They don't know the struggle. And so the relatability piece is probably the number one myth that I've heard. And then also I go back to the cultural piece. My mom, my dad never went, so why should I? Or I don't want to seem weak.
So
I
how
don't.
so how have you overcome that yourself working with people? Because yeah, I've heard that. I've heard that forever. We don't need to shrink around here. We're not crazy. And I'm like, that's not why I'm here. You might be crazy, but that may not be why I'm here. But
Right,
how do you
right.
overcome that yourself?
So how we tackle it is kind of like a three-prong approach. It's not just we're coming in with mental health resources available. We come in with life skills development, career development opportunities, resources to better your life off of the field and make you just as successful on the field. When you repackage and reframe and speak it in a player's language and meet them where they're at, there's already buy-in off of the bat. We do this all the time with our programs. We had to refresh some of the material this past season because the way we were doing things, it was going in one ear and out the other. We're saying, oh, mandatory programming, legal training. No, no, no. Just hit them with simple language. We are designing sessions to make you a better person. And then we come in with the mental health resources. So
Right.
we don't
You don't start it
necessarily.
off with that. You bring it in right. Exactly.
Correct.
That's the way, like I said.
Because then, and we use a lot of testimonial where we say, look at your players who did it really well. Do you know what they all have in common? They took advantage of these resources, career development resources, mental health resources, and it clicks. So we're really trying to speak their language and not come in with an intimidating approach, but more of a holistic, loving, supportive approach, if that makes sense.
100%. Now, we're on social media right now. Okay. But to me, social media has so many detriments to it and causes so many problems. I've worked with players, if they make a mistake, everybody wants to get rid of them. You're terrible. They get horrendous messages all the time. If they do great, you're the greatest thing ever off the face of the earth. That's why I tell players I work with during the competitive season, get off social media. Don't post on it. Don't read it. Because the people that say stuff out, they don't know anything about you. They just see you as this person in a uniform, whatever the sport. Doesn't matter. What's your thought about that?
I'm not a fan of social media. I am a millennial, so I enjoy the way that we communicate, which is quick, but I don't enjoy the downward spiral that can take place so quickly, right? So if it's used properly, it can be an effective communication tool. I just saw a post from my town's Instagram feed today, and it was 4 middle school girls bullying this one young girl, and it was reported to the police, and the girl's life was saved, thank God. But it was around suicide, and my point is, bullying can happen really quickly, and it's a dangerous, slippery slope. For the NFL, players fall victim to a lot of scamming on social media. There are literal con artists who pose or catfish, if you like to say, as friends, as fans, as money managers. And if you're not reading between the lines, downward spiral can occur very quickly. Something from as big as cryptocurrency scams to an actual dating incident.
Well, we've seen those in the NFL across the board with several people.
Across the board. And so it's not just bullying, it's manipulation, and it's a complete trickery of the mind. As a millennial, I sometimes like to escape on social media, and that's kind of like my me time, which is weird to say, but it's almost like, all right, let me just scroll through, relax. You're almost vulnerable because you're using it as a leisure activity. You let your guard down as an NFL player. Really bad things can happen. A lot of money can be lost, and careers are in full jeopardy because it takes one bad move to get fined, suspended, um, or get in trouble in other ways.
So, do you feel that, especially starting at, well, I talk about it at the youth sport level, but all the way up, we need to educate coaches and parents about a lot of these things. But when a lot of these athletes get to the collegiate level, they've survived. I always say anybody who plays college sports survived youth sports, especially in today's society, with all the wacky stuff that goes on. We've talked about on this show many times. At the collegiate level, should there and does there need to be the development of programs like the NFL has for these
Yes,
players? It should start there, shouldn't it?
100%. I understand that not every college is your Big Ten SEC school. So the funding might not be there to actually create a player development or an athletic advising department. However, more athletic departments or the NCAA really needs to see the value in educating these players, these student athletes, on the life skills, right? Decision making. It lives in social media. It also lives out at the club or the bar, on the way to the field, coming home, so on and so forth. And so the main themes need to be addressed 100% on the college level.
Well, I have a saying I've used forever, and that's if you can have two athletes who are physically the same, the one with a stronger mind will be the one who'll come out on top. And in order to have a stronger mind, one of the big words I use with the people I work with is balance. What is balance? Doesn't mean everything's equal. It means today this may be important than this was yesterday. So I think what I'm hearing you say is the program, the player engagement department that you're working with in charge of, what you're talking about is you're implementing this for the NFL players, and so this needs to be something that needs to be pushed down to the lower levels, the collegiate and even high school, to get these young men and women educated. And it's great if you can run a 100-meter dash in a certain time, a certain amount of weights, but if you're not mentally together enough to understand pressures, the stressors, the issues you got to deal with, you will be taken advantage of down the road. And I think that's what your program comes in and plays a big role in the NFL today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we do everything from career development opportunities to help these individuals prepare for their next career, right? Because the NFL is so short, um, to actual life skill development. So we have these mandatory programming trainings that come out of the league office. Our rookie program, it used to be called the Rookie Symposium. It includes 8 total wellness sessions. We like to say total wellness at the league office, but it's basically your mental health education. And it runs the gamut. We talk about decision making, substance abuse, gambling addiction, you name it, we're addressing it. And that's right off the bat as a rookie. And then you continue to get mandatory education from the league office every year that you are in the NFL, domestic violence awareness education, security education, how to be secure online, social media.
Well, it sounds to me like some of this is working, because we've seen, at least from what you hear, at least public, you don't obviously hear everything, but the number of incidents that you're being reported has lessened dramatically in the last few years. So I think that obviously the program you have is working and helping a lot of these young men out.
I would like to think so. I would say a lot of incidents have gone down post COVID as well. I think we're also in their faces a lot more with this education and training and policy and awareness. I think because of the phone and the quickness to get information, we're everywhere. We're in their locker rooms, there's signage. Every club has a head of player engagement who's talking to them every single day. What are you doing tonight? How are you doing? How are you getting there? Are you good? Did you tune in? There's a total wellness session. It's free for players. It talks about substance abuse. It talks about your resources, your benefits, the availability of clinical help. We are so front and center now more than ever before. And I can only say that's the number one reason why incidents are lower.
Well, look, I want to thank you for joining us tonight. You've obviously got your hands full with some little kids there, so I'm going to let you.
I apologize. I'm a multitasker,
But yes, you are, and you did a great job. But if people would like to get a hold of you, Carla, how can they reach you? I'm sure
they can definitely email me at carlamarie1987@gmail.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn, Carla Buglione. I'm the only Carla Buglione in the NFL. Just search my name, and I'm happy to talk shop. I'm happy to talk sports psych. My master's is in athletic counseling, and so I hold this topic near and dear to my heart.
Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and I'm glad that you're doing what you're doing, because these guys need a lot of that help, and I've been aware of it for years, and I'm glad that there's a program for these young men to help them do with their lives. So thanks for joining us tonight. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time, Will.
If you enjoyed our conversation tonight, visit my website, which is winnersunlimited.com. You can click on all our podcasts, listen to episodes of close to 10 years of them. That's winnersunlimited.com. I'm sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs. Thanks for joining us tonight.